I've never been a great one for planning meals that we eat. I've always just kind of opened the cupboard and seen what we've got and stood and stared in the fridge for inspiration. And the same is still true now we grow most of our own food. But instead of looking in the cupboard, I come out to the garden and see what's ready to be eaten. So it looks like tonight's meal is going to involve beans, I think I'd also like to do something with some potatoes. This is one of the beds that had a row of peas going down the centre of it, and it's the bed that had the Greek gigantes beans in it last year, and indeed here they are regrowing very nicely. They're very late. I've got some further back that are much larger, but it is nice to see that they're regrowing. So it had peas down the centre and then potatoes on the outside of it, and it's time to get some potatoes for our supper. Oh, these look pretty good. So this is a Maris Piper. I can see there are lots and lots of baby potatoes on it. So if this had been left in the ground for a few more weeks, they would have grown in. This is the bit of harvesting potatoes that I really like, where you start looking through to see what else you can find. On the top here there's a lot of grass. This is what I used as a mulch to exclude the light from the potatoes, and it's worked really well. I will certainly be doing that again. I used about 2 inches or more of grass clippings, and I did that a couple of times to earth the potatoes up. So what I'm trying to do is to just go back down with my hand to the level where the soil was before, and I'm certainly can feel I've got there because it's I've hit the clay soil of the field. And all too often when you think you found another potato, it's a stone, and then there is another potato. Okay, well, I'm pretty pleased with that. That is from just one seed potato, Maris Pipers. I'm really pleased. When I've grown them previously, they've had lots and lots of scab on them, and these are, I'm not going to say completely free, but they're looking really lovely. So all these outer leaves will go to the birds, and we will have the cabbage from the centre. So that's ours, yummy yum, and all the rest for the birds. So that was yesterday, and what I made for supper was some duck and potato wedges. I sliced the beans and the cabbage and served it with some tomatoes. I made a sauce out of beetroot wine and cherry jelly, and we had a 100% homegrown, home-raised meal. But today, out in the garden again, I just want to show you this beautiful, spin you round so I can show you. Isn't that gorgeous? So out to the polytunnel, I want to check on the tomatoes. 4 years ago, so our first growing season here, I grew some tomatoes in the greenhouse, and they were okay. They were all right, but they got nibbled by something. And then the second year, even though I'd cleaned out the greenhouse, grew them again, and they got nibbled again, but this time I found the culprit. There's something munching on the tomatoes. I've spotted it. I've tried to deal with it, and then I got a bit freaked out by it. And that was the tomato hornworm. Not the most attractive caterpillar to look at. They also got hit by blight, so I gathered in all the tomatoes I could, but they had quite a bitter taste to them, and it really put me off tomatoes. So last year I said I wasn't going to grow any, and you persuaded me to grow at least a couple of plants, so I grew 4, possibly 5 cherry tomatoes in a hanging basket fixed to the wall, and that was lovely just to have 1 or 2. And then I thought this year I wouldn't grow any. And then in April, when I ran the low-cost gardening course here in the polytunnel, one of the participants brought me a selection of tomato plants, which was such a blessing. I didn't really realise at the time, I probably didn't appreciate how much I was going to enjoy them. And here they are, a selection of 6 different tomato types, and to be able to experiment and see which ones we like has been absolutely brilliant. We've had no tomato hornworm in here, touch wood. We've had no blight yet, and I'm really pleased with how well they've done. So this one at the end doesn't have many fruit on it. It's a San Marzano, so it's an Italian style plum tomato. It's really tasty, but we haven't had very much fruit from it. That could be because it's right next to my potting table, so we isn't getting the light from that direction. We'll have had plenty of water, and it's had the same feed as the other plants, but it hasn't produced nearly as many fruits as the other plants. And this one here is a nameless variety because the name has faded too much on its label, but I think it's something like Gardener's Delight. It's a lovely tomato, really pleased with it. Quite firm flesh. They do go quite red, very lovely. This one is a cherry tigerella. It's not as cherry as I would imagine it to be, so it's not tiny fruits, but they do have that distinctive striped marbling on their skin. They're really attractive, quite a nice taste. Not as deeply tomatoey, fruity flavour as some varieties, but really nice on the plate, really attractive on a salad to give it some variation of colour. This one is just called tomato. I don't have a name for it, but it's very much a beefsteak shaped tomato, although so far hasn't been that large. Had a couple of them, again firm flesh. Very nice. Just waiting now for these to ripen a little more. And by far my most favourite tomato so far has been this yellow one. It's called golden something, but I can't make out what the something is. If I find out, I'll pop it on the screen. These are flavoursome, they're very juicy, they're very tomatoey. I'm really enjoying having them. I will be growing these again. And then this cherry tomato, which has been so prolific. They are just incredible. So masses of little tiny cherry tomatoes on each floret. Is that the right word? On each section. And they just keep going. There are masses and masses of them. I'm looking now and I'm just wondering whether we're getting the first signs of blight in here. In which case I will harvest all of these as quickly as possible and get them frozen for use during the winter. So this year I think tomatoes have been an absolute success.